witches. Thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this live broadcast, especially if you are a brand new witch and this is your first time celebrating the Witches' New Year, known as Samhain. I'm so excited. We are about 2.5 weeks away from Samhain. Samhain is the Witches' New Year on October 31st. If you are a new witch, first of all, welcome to the craft. Welcome to the witch community. And yes, that does include men, because men can be witches. Let's settle this debate. Men can be witches. You cannot deny access to the craft based on somebody's sex. So yes, men, welcome to the craft. If you happen to be a new witch, you are a witch, not a wizard, not a warlock. Those are lies made up by Christians to mock you. Being called a wizard or a warlock is a Christian mocking you. These are Christian terms, wizard and warlock. You are a witch. A witch is a witch, is a witch, is a witch, no matter what your sex is. Being called a wizard or a warlock is a term created by Christians to mock you, to diss you, to insult you, to disrespect you, to try to be cute, to try to be fresh. It's passive aggressive. It's passive aggressive. And we know that Christians are passive aggressive anyway, right? Right, so let's move on from that. If you are a brand new witch and this will be your first time celebrating Samhain, you need to know a few things before you do so. First and foremost, what is Samhain? You know, what is Samhain? Okay, I'll tell you. Samhain is when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, so it's easier to communicate with loved ones and pets that have passed away before you. It's a time to honor your ancestors. And a word about loved ones. Samhain is for your loved ones, not for the rapist in the family, not for the murderer in the family, not for the strange uncle in the family. To celebrate your ancestors is to celebrate people that you actually knew in life. Your great, 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 great grandmother, you did not know her. You do not celebrate an ancestor on Samhain that you did not actually know in life, because they don't know you. Simple as that. But what happens if you are an orphan? Well, then you honor those people that you considered family that have predeceased you, that have passed away before you, if you happen to be an orphan or adopted. Now, I said that Samhain falls on October 31st. So you might be thinking, isn't that Halloween? No, it's not Halloween. Halloween and Samhain are not the same. Halloween and Samhain are not the same. They both fall on the 31st of October, but they are not the same. So what's the difference between the two? Halloween is dressing up in costumes, going to parties, carving pumpkins, bobbing for apples, watching scary movies. Samhain is about honoring your loved ones and pets that have crossed over to Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge is the animal's afterlife, where you will be reunited with them when you pass away. Halloween and Samhain are not the same holiday. But that does not also mean that you can't celebrate both. You can celebrate Halloween and Samhain. Maybe not on the same day, but when it comes to Samhain, you can celebrate Samhain anytime in October. But you can only celebrate Halloween one night of the year. So if you don't want to celebrate Samhain exactly on the 31st, you can celebrate it after this broadcast comes to an end. You can celebrate Samhain tomorrow night or anytime between now and the 31st of October. Me personally, I celebrate Samhain sometime in October and say the 31st for Halloween. Halloween, personally for me, is my favorite holiday. I love Halloween. Halloween is my favorite American holiday. Samhain is my favorite Sabbath when it comes to witches. And there are 3 ways to say Samhain, 3 ways to pronounce Samhain. And they are Samhain, Samhain, and Samhain. I will say that again. There are 3 ways to pronounce the witch's new year. Samhain, Samhain, and Samhain. Those are the 3 pronunciations for Samhain. You can also combine Halloween and Samhain. You can. The decision is always up to the witch. The decision is always up to the witch. Nobody makes decisions for witches. Nobody. Because when you become a witch, you take personal responsibility for yourself. You take accountability when you are a witch. Personal responsibility and accountability have to be seared, I would say tattooed on your brain when you become a witch. When you become a witch, there is nobody to blame for your actions or inactions. It is all on you. Why? Because you take personal responsibility. You take accountability. You are a grown up when you are a witch. You are a grown up when you are a witch. You take full responsibility, full accountability. There is no area of gray. There is no one time when you can put the blame on someone or something else. There is no one time when you can't take accountability. No. You're either all in or all out. Now, since it is the season of the witch, it is what I call Witchtober. You are definitely going to see a lot of Christians coming for your throats. Christians jump on the backs of witches in October, just like they jump on the backs of the members of the LGBTQ community in June when it is Pride Month. And they spew lies about us as witches. They lie, they deliberately make up stories to scare people. I heard one story about witches praying over candy and giving it out to children. That's retarded. That's retarded. A witch would not do that. They're not that interested in your child. And you're going to see posts on social media that are all lies about witches. And the person behind the screen or the person holding the phone typing out those lies have their child waiting in a bathtub of dirty ass water. And they have been sitting in the water waiting to come out for the 20 minutes that Christian was typing up lies about witches on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, YouTube, TikTok. Yeah, go get your dirty ass child out of that dirty ass water and mind your fucking business. So what do you do about Christians who will undoubtedly come for your throat? You can retaliate, because I believe that it's not in the interest of any witch to be somebody's punching bag. So I do advocate for cursing people. I do advocate for returning energy. I do advocate in speaking in a language that people can understand. I'm famous for saying this, and that is, you can't talk to me in French and expect me to understand you. I won't understand you. But if you speak to me in a language that I can understand, then there will be an understanding between us. So I advocate for witches cursing people who deserve it. Curses, let me tell you something about curses. Curses really quick. Curses only work if the curse is justifiable, if the person deserves to be cursed. If the person deserves to be cursed, that curse will hit that person's life. Curses only work if the person deserves to be cursed. So you can't retaliate against Christians who come for your throat on social media, who step to you on the street because you are wearing your pentacle or pentagram, because witches have the right to protect themselves. Why? Because we know as witches, the law does not work the same way for us because we are witches. And of course, you can always take the high road and let Hecate, the queen of witches, take care of those same Christians. Because nobody escapes a traditional experience with Hecate. When you are under the covering of Hecate, which you are, if you are a witch, you may not be a committed devotee of Hecate, but if you are a witch, you are automatically under the covering of Hecate. And guess what? Let me tell you a little secret. Hecate always protects her own. I could say a lot about how Hecate has taken out lots of people on my behalf, taken out lots of people on the behalf of others, because Hecate does not play games when it comes to witches. She does not play games. She goes straight for the throat, straight for the heart. And there will be nothing for the witch to do but watch the blood shed. And that's the truth. Hecate chooses violence when violence is done to a witch. Hecate chooses violence when violence is done towards a witch. All the time. There is no conversation. There is no negotiation. There is no crying and pleading and begging. Oh, please stop hurting me. No. No, nobody gets a pass. Not one soul gets a pass. So you can choose between those two. Either to seek revenge on that Christian, or to let Hecate deal with that Christian. And no, get out of the spirit of me invoking violence against Christians. No. This is not invoking violence against Christians. It's making Christians back up off of you in the month of October. That's what this is. That's what I'm saying. Because we know that Christians absolutely hate witches. We know that Christians hate witches. We know this. We know that Christians are the most hateful people on the earth. That's a fact. Both of the things that I said is a fact. So when is the largest Sabbath on our Wiccan wheel of the year? It is so important for us to give back to those that have passed away before us, because it is the one night of the year to do so. It's the one night, Samhain is the one night of the year when you can say your final goodbye if you were not in the room when your loved one or pet passed away. You know how many people wish that they had a second chance to say goodbye to a loved one or to say goodbye to a pet? Samhain on October 31st is another chance to say goodbye to that loved one or that pet that has passed away. Only on Samhain. Why? Because Samhain is the one night of the year when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. Samhain, for many of you which is watching this broadcast, it will be your last time to say goodbye. A lot of people were not in the room when their loved one passed away and they regret it. Or they weren't with their animal, their pet that passed away, and they regret it. Samhain on October 31st is your last chance to say a formal goodbye. Because we know that goodbye is permanent. Goodbyes are permanent. There's a big difference between saying bye and saying goodbye. Saying bye and saying goodbye are not the same thing. Not the same thing. So if you have lost a loved one recently or lost a pet recently, Samhain on October 31st is your chance to say a formal goodbye. How do you say a formal goodbye? Okay, I'm going to tell you how to say a formal goodbye. You lay out pictures of your loved one or your pet that have predeceased you. You light any candle that you feel intuitively by listening to your intuition. You light the type of candles that is led by your intuition or by your chosen God or goddess or ancestor. You put out your ancestor's favorite food. You put out your favorite You put out your pet's favorite food. Now, this is known as a dumb supper. A dumb supper is basically a supper. But of course, the dead and dead pets don't eat. So you set space at the table. You set space on the floor for your pet. And nobody speaks. That's why it's called a dumb supper. Dumb really means to be quiet, to be silent. When you have a dumb supper, you sit in silence and eat, while also reflecting on that loved one's life or that pet's life. And you make sure you have an empty space for your ancestor or ancestors or pets to be a part of the ceremony. When you have a dumb supper, most of the time, you will either feel the presence of your loved one. You may see your loved one or see your pet. What do I mean when I say see your loved one? That's exactly what I mean. I mean you see your relative that has passed away. So for new witches, this October 31st may be the very first time that you see a ghost. The ghost of your loved one. But how do you know that it's your actual relative and not a spirit, copying them or, trying to pretend that it's them? It's easy. You test the spirit. You ask them questions. Listen, spirits that copy or pretend to be your loved one, they don't know everything about your loved one. They don't. Ask the spirit that you believe is your relative or your dog or cat that has passed away questions that they would only know the answer to. I mean, you have to go way back in your memory and ask them a question that only they would know. Because spirits that imitate loved ones, that copy loved ones, that pretend to be loved ones, they don't know everything about your loved one or pet that has passed away. So you ask questions. You have to say something. Don't just accept that this is your uncle or your mother or your grandmother or your grandfather and say, oh, I'm so happy you're here, because that could very well be a trickster spirit. You have to ask questions. Now, if the spirit gets angry or gets annoyed or gets frustrated or maybe even throw things around the house, that's your answer that is a spirit pretending to be your loved one, pretending to be your pet. Because your real relative, your real ancestor, your real pet would not get angry. That's how you know that you are actually talking to a loved one, or seeing a loved one, or seeing a pet that has predeceased you. That's how you know. A dumb supper does not have to be this big thing. All you have to do is lay out food that you are actually going to eat. Remember, your loved one, your pet doggo, your cat, your pet bird, your pet hamster, your pet snake, your pet rabbit, they can't eat food anymore. So you set out an empty plate for them. And you make food that you, the person who is alive, would actually eat. You don't make a big abundance of food and let it, go to waste. And you sit in silence. You ask your ancestor or your loved one or your pet to come dine with you. You ask them. You don't demand them. Because like I say before, the living has no ownership over the dead. The dead has no ownership over the living. You can't boss them around. You can't give them demands or commands because they're simply not going to respond. They're not at all. You can ask them to join you at your dumb supper, but that doesn't mean they have to show up. So don't get mad at grandma or your mother or your favorite cousin because they didn't come to your dumb supper. Why they didn't show up, that's their business. I don't know why they didn't show up. Maybe they wanted to see someone else. Or maybe, and this might be a hard truth to hear, maybe you were not so close with them. Or maybe they died bitter. I said this before. And it will always be true. People who die in bitterness are still bitter in the afterlife. That's the truth. That is the truth. That's a hard truth. But it's the truth. People who were bitter in life, they are still bitter and hateful and just mean-spirited and just plain mean and nasty and vicious in death. Nothing changed. Nothing has changed. And I would go as far to say they are still a piece of shit. They are. There is no transformation. You are the same person in the afterlife as you were in life. Nothing changed. What makes you think anything changed? If you die in bitterness, you will be bitter in the afterlife. That's just it. That is just it. That's a hard word to hear. But it needed to be said. It needed to be said. Your feelings might be hurt right now after my delivery of this word, but you'll be okay. You'll be okay. Now, if you do have your loved one or ancestor or pet appear in front of you, it might scare you. I'll tell you right now, when I first saw my first ghost, I was 4 years old. And I saw a woman down the hallway of my bedroom walk through the wall. This was in the daytime. It was not at night. I wasn't asleep. I saw a woman that was transparent. She was see-through. Okay? She was transparent. I could see through her. All right? I could see through her. And she walked through the wall. I never seen her before. She wasn't any relative that I knew. All I know is that she was a black woman. That's all I know. That's all I know. I jumped out of bed, almost twisted my ankle. Hey, what's that? Like, what the fuck? So if you see your first ghost this 31st of October, you may say that too. What the fuck? You might cover your head with the blankets like I did. That was terrified. I was scared when I first saw my first ghost. It scared the shit out of me. Remember, I was only 4 years old. I was only 4 years old. And my parents wrote it off because I told my parents. My parents wrote it off as it just being my imagination that was running away from me. No, it was not my imagination. I was not asleep. I know what I saw. I saw a woman who was see-through, who was transparent, that looked ghostly, walked down the hallway and walked through another wall. I didn't imagine that. I never really had an imagination growing up. You know, if you don't know this about me, I am a Scorpio, and Scorpios tend to be very logical and rational. Even though Scorpios can be passionate, they can be serious. You know, Scorpios live in reality, and I was like that even at 4 years old. I know what I saw. So if you see your first ghost this October, take a deep breath. Try not to scream. Make yourself something to drink. Hell, go get a drink. Get a strong drink. Get some strong vodka. Get some strong wine. Because it's life-changing when you see your first ghost. Ghosts do exist. Forget about those TV shows. I'm talking about real ghosts. Ghost spirits. There's no difference, by the way, between ghosts and spirits. They mean the same thing. Ghost, spirit, it's the same thing. There is no difference between the two. Alright, let me just say that because people ask me, what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? There is no difference. They are the same thing, just a different name. Alright? So just relax if you see a ghost of your loved one, knowing damn well they were cremated, knowing damn well they are a complete skeleton in the ground. Sometimes they may speak, sometimes they may not. Sometimes ghosts and spirits of our loved ones can, but this is rare though, but they can appear as real as you and I. What does that mean? That means they can look alive, but that takes an incredible amount of energy to look like that. It takes an incredible amount of energy to look like you did in life. But that is so rare. You might never see that in your life, but that does happen. Sometimes ghosts look as solid as you and I, that you might think they are alive. But when you reach out to touch them, they are cold. Of course they're cold. They're not alive as you and I, but we know that life goes on because what does physics tell us? Physics tell us that energy cannot be created or changed. Created or destroyed. It can only be changed. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. So that's how we know that there is life after death. That's how we know. That right there. That right there. But like I said, it's so rare to see your loved one or any ghost that looks as real as you and I. That's super rare. That's super rare. And if they touch you, which they can, you can be touched. It's gonna feel like somebody had put their hand in ice water full of ice cubes and they touch you. It is cold. It is freezing. It is frigid if a ghost touch you. How do I know? Because I've been touched by ghosts before. I've had relatives that have passed away join me in my rituals for Samhain and join me for my dumb supper. So I know this to be true. They are never warm. Ghosts are never warm. You've heard this term before. cold in the grave. Yeah, they are cold in the grave because they're not alive as you and I anymore. That's why they are cold in the grave. That's why. That's not a mean thing to say. It's the truth. It is the truth. So you might see your loved ones or pets that passed away. If you don't see your pet, you may hear your pet. So you might be able to tell that it's your cat that's meowing, that it's your dog that's barking, happily barking. You may see shadows. Am I saying that right? Shadows. You might see shadows, but they are not shadow people. Shadow people are from a different dimension that come into our world. When I say shadows, when it comes to your loved ones and your pets, I mean they don't have enough energy to materialize, to look as real as you and I. So they appear as a shadow of their former self. They look like a black mask in the shape of your loved one or pet that has passed away before you. So you may have had, let's say, what's a really distinct dog? A really distinct dog may be a golden retriever. They're blonde. If you don't trim the tail of that golden retriever, it's just blonde fur everywhere. You know it's a golden retriever. It may appear, the shadow may not be black. If it's a golden retriever, it might actually be a gold shadow or blonde. Golden retrievers are blonde. Yellow retrievers are yellow. Chocolate, black Labradors, they're chocolate and they're brown. So they may appear as the color that they were in life. Now when it comes to a person, it may be the shape of a person. They may be wearing the clothes that you knew them to wear in life. They may not be wearing the clothes that they were buried in or cremated in, but you just know that's the shape of your grandmother. You know that's the shape of your mother or your aunt or your grandfather or any loved one or ancestor that you were close with in life. And like I just said a couple of moments ago, your ancestor is someone that you actually knew in life. Your ancestor, you have to have had knowledge of that person. I know some people say your ancestor, they mean your ancestor from slavery, your ancestor from the Salem witch trials, your ancestor from the fucking pilgrims. That's what a lot of people think an ancestor is, but it's not. An ancestor is someone that you knew in life. You don't know that woman. She may be your great grandmother, but did you know her? Didn't she die 10,000 years ago? Were you alive 10,000 years ago? Did you know her 10,000 years ago? No, of course you didn't. So she's not an ancestor because you did not know her in life. You don't know her story. She may have been a murderer. She might have been a rapist. Oh yes, women can rape. Okay, let me just put that out there. Okay, women are not always innocent. Okay, so you don't know her. She's not an ancestor. Your ancestor is someone that you knew in life. Don't honor somebody that you don't know. And I know some witches, especially new witches, might want to put celebrities on their altar. Let me tell you something. Your favorite musician, your favorite rapper, singer, model, athlete is not your ancestor. Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, Michael Jackson are not your ancestors. They don't know you. Now you can put them on a separate table to give them acknowledgement that the veil between the living and the dead, and that they too can pass through that veil. But do not put Marilyn Monroe on your ancestor altar. Marilyn Monroe is not your ancestor at all. The only exception is if you share a bloodline with that celebrity. If you are blood related to Elvis, if you are blood related to Michael Jackson, if you are blood related to, let's say, an athlete, Kobe Bryant, then yeah, you can put those people on your ancestor altar. But if you do not share bloodline with them, they don't go on your ancestor altar. They go on a separate table. But you don't call them an ancestor. Elvis is not your ancestor. He is not. Because we know that people are absolutely obsessed with celebrities, even though they have passed away. They may say things such as, I have a special connection with Michael Jackson. So what's that mean? What's that? What you trying to say? What you talking about? He's not your ancestor though. So why is he on your ancestor altar? Take him off of there. Put him, if you want to, put him on a separate table. But he's not your ancestor. He did not know you. You do not share a bloodline with him. The only exception is if you did know that person in life. Or if you do share bloodline with that person. Now, if you knew these celebrities personally, then that's your business. On Samhain, you might find people going to, the graveyard. A lot of new witches tend to go to graveyards on Samhain when they don't have anybody buried there. Let me just say this. You don't belong in the cemetery graveyard if you do not have a loved one buried or entombed there. You have no right to be there. Leave. A lot of graveyards tend to be closed on Halloween to prevent us witches from going there and trying to light candles, trying to have a picnic on somebody's grave, which is an abomination, which is horrible to do. No, don't go to graveyards or cemeteries either anytime in October or especially on Samhain if you don't actually have a loved one there. You have no business there. Leave. Leave. Don't take graveyard dirt from someone that you don't know and try to use it in witchcraft on a day like Samhain, because you don't know that person. You don't know if the dirt that you got from that person's grave was that of a murderer. You don't know. You just took it. Stay out of the graveyards. Stay out of the cemeteries on Samhain unless you actually have somebody that is buried there or entombed there. Because like I said a few moments ago, the dead can touch you. The dead can touch you. They can wreak havoc in your life. I don't understand why so many witches think that having a picnic on somebody's grave is normal behavior. That's not normal behavior. That's weird. Especially if you did not know that person. It's 100% chance that the graveyard, the cemetery, will be closed on October 31st to prevent people like that from trespassing. I'm 100% sure every graveyard, every cemetery will be closed on October 31st. If I was a graveyard keeper, I would keep it closed on that day because I know how people are. People play a lot of games. People vandalize graves on October 31st, and then they wonder why their house is haunted. They wonder why their walls is oozing blood. They wonder why things are being thrown around in their house. They wonder why they are being thrown around the house. They wonder why they are hearing voices. They wonder why they are having horrible nightmares. They wonder why their beds are shaking. Because you trespass on somebody's grave that you did not know. You have no business in a cemetery or graveyard on October 31st unless you actually have somebody buried there. That's it. Stay out of the graveyards and the cemeteries, especially if it is a military cemetery. There's no doubt that will be closed. And if you sneak in, there will be no questions asked. You will simply be arrested. You will not be given a ticket. You will not be given a warning. You will be simply taken to jail if you go into a military cemetery graveyard. You are going to jail. Military cemeteries, military graveyards are super strict. They don't play any games. They play no games as a military cemetery or graveyard. They don't want to hear none of your excuses. You have no excuse. If you disrespect a military graveyard or a military cemetery in any shape or form, you are going to jail that night. You're not going to be asked to leave. You're not going to be given a ticket. You will simply be arrested. They're real strict. They're real strict because I believe it's private property. I know this to be true because I have family members that are buried throughout this country that are in military cemeteries, and they are very strict. Very strict. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I know when you think about Halloween or Samhain, you think about black cats. You might want to get a black cat. You know, black cats are made out of flesh and blood. They are alive. They're not a decoration to just have for Halloween and send back to the shelter. Most shelters will not let you adopt a black cat anytime in October, because many people go to the shelter to get a black cat just to have it for Halloween and then either release it into the streets or send it back to the shelter because they are too stupid to realize that a black cat is a living thing. It's a living thing made out of flesh and blood. You adopted this cat, you fostering this cat because you want to actually take care of it, not because it's a Halloween decoration. So don't get a black cat in October just to feel more like a witch. You are still a witch with no black cat, with no pet at all. Because most new witches will get a black cat for Halloween and then release it onto the street or send it back to the shelter. That's why shelters do not normally let you adopt a black cat in this month of October because they already know what's up. They already know. They already know. If you're going to adopt a black cat, adopt the black cat because you actually want to take care of it. Not because it's a Halloween decoration. That's stupid. And you're hurting the cat. The cat is a living thing. It's not a prop. It's not a toy. It's a living animal. It's not something to masquerade around just for one night of the year and then release it onto the street or send it back to the shelter claiming you can't control the cat. The cat needs to be rehomed. No, you can't control yourself. You need to be rehomed. The bastard is you, not the cat. It's you. That goes back to what I said a couple moments ago. Taking personal responsibility and taking accountability when you first become a witch. You have to. You have to. Being a witch means owning up to your own shit. Being solid. Being real. Being, authentic. Calling out the fake. Exposing the phony. Now, you're not prepared to be real. If you're not ready to take personal responsibility and accountability for yourself, then being a witch will never work out for you. It will never work out for you. You have to take personal responsibility and personal accountability if you are a real witch. If you are a real witch, you will take responsibility and accountability. You can't have one without the other. You can't choose one over the other. It has to be both. It has to be both. It has to be both. To you new witches, welcome to the craft. Both men and women, welcome to the craft. Enjoy this Samhain, however you celebrate it. There are right and wrong ways to celebrate it. I just mentioned a couple of them. But it's ultimately up to you because you have to deal with whatever comes after the way you celebrated Samhain. Why? Because as a witch, you take responsibility. You take accountability. So whatever you do to celebrate Samhain, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions that will follow. Whatever you decide to do for Samhain, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions that will follow, whatever they may be. So be careful of what you do. Think long and hard, and then think some more. Think once, think twice, think 3 times, think four times, 5 times. Just think. Is this going to come back and kick me in the ass? Is this going to haunt me? Am I doing the right thing? And a way to know is simply by listening to your intuition. Your intuition, like I am so famous for saying, is your inner compass. Your intuition is your inner compass. It knows what's really good before you do. So let your intuition lead you. Let your chosen God or goddess or ancestor or familiar or spirit animal lead you. Discern quickly, discern correctly on what you should be doing for Samhain. And keep in mind that you can celebrate Samhain anytime in October and save Halloween, because Halloween only comes once a year for the 31st. So I wanted to come on here live and share this for new witches because I get asked a lot, what should I do for Samhain? I'm a brand new witch. How should I celebrate it? How should I not celebrate it? So now you are now informed. And I strongly encourage you witches to share this broadcast in your own stories, on your own social media platforms and websites. Because I do want to get more views so that more witches can know how to get real significant and permanently positive change through witchcraft. How they can be under the covering of the Queen of Witches, Hecate, and be protected. be prospered, be in abundance all the time, not some of the time, not maybe sometime, but all of the time. Because like I am famous for again, no witch should be going through life the hard way. As a witch, your life should be easier. It should not be harder. Of course, being a witch does put a target on your back, but you get a backbone when you are a witch to stand against people who don't like you because you are a witch. Because it's not in the interest, it's not in the best interest of any witch to be somebody's punching bag. Let me tell you something. You can't bully a witch. You can't intimidate a witch. That's retarded. To try. It's retarded. I said it. It is retarded. Why? Because witches are powerhouses. Witches are powerhouses. Witches don't need power. They are power. Witches don't need power. Witches are power. And now that you are new to the craft, now that you right now watching this is a brand new witch, you too are a powerhouse. You too will have real significant and permanently positive change through your real world action. How far you go in life depends on your real world action. How much of a successful witch you are depends solely on your real world action, as he caused the queen of witches as her strength to your own. When Hecate receives that you are doing your part, she will add her strength to your own all the time, every time, and also give you make you sustain it and give you the wisdom to multiply it with no sorrow added on. That means when I say no sorrow added on, I mean there'll be no problem with it. What happens to people who are not witches, everything that happens to people who are not witches will not happen to you, because you are a witch. You are a powerhouse. You are all that in a bag of chips. And that's real. That's the truth. Witches are all that in a bag of chips. Witches do got it going on. Witches are powerful. Witches are all that. I'm not just hyping witches up. I'm telling you the truth about witches. You need to hear it delivered in this way. You don't need to hear me ease into it. You just need to hear it. Maybe you need to be reminded of it. And now you have been. And it's all true. It is all true. I want every witch, and I do mean witches. If you're not a witch, listen. If you are not a witch, I'm not talking to you. This live is not for you. So, go away. Go away. This live is for witches, new witches, people who might be thinking of becoming witches. I mean, seriously considering becoming a witch. Not people becoming witches just because it's October and then going back to being a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew on November 1st. That's stupid. It's stupid to be a so-called real witch on October 31st, and then on November 1st, you are back to being a Christian, Muslim, or Jew. Those of the Abrahamic faith. That's stupid. Don't call yourself a real witch on October 31st, Samhain, Halloween, and then go back to being covered by the blood of Jesus. That's stupid. Don't mock our faith. Witches get a lot of shit thrown at them. In October especially. And it has to be called out just like I just did. It has to be exposed. It has to be talked about raw, like I just did, with no censoring, with no filter, with no sugarcoating. Real words, real language, really delivered in this way, with no apologies. I don't make apologies because I know what I'm talking about. I make no apologies when it comes to witches because I know what I'm talking about. I'm a high priestess. I know what I'm talking about. And those who have an ear to receive this, to hear this, they will accept this. And then they will have real, significant, and permanently positive change through witchcraft. Because they heard it in this way. You know, a lot of witches get on here and they talk and they don't get to the point. You know, when I broadcast live or do a video, I get straight to the point because I don't like a whole lot of beating around the bush, or I don't like a long introduction. Just tell me what I need to know as a witch. That's the type of person I am. I am the type of witch that gets straight into the broadcast right away. I don't ever need to build up hype. Because I don't, just tell me what I need to know. Get to the point. Let's hurry up. So that's the word right there for witches who may go live and have this long introduction about the topic or about themselves and get to the point when the point could have been 5 minutes long and they took 2 hours to get to the point. I would be pissed. I don't need a 10-page essay about the topic that you're going to get into. Just get into it already. I don't like a whole lot of talking unless it's straight to the point with, you know, explanations that are true. I don't like it. I don't like it. You know, I'm not a real talker unless I'm getting straight to the point. So that's a word right there for a couple witches that go live and do a 20-page introduction, a 20-page essay on what the topic is even about, instead of getting to the point. I don't like that shit. That shit pisses me off. I don't like it. I want people to be forward with me, to be straight up with me, not beat around the bush. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. That's a little bit off topic for this subject, but I feel like in my spirit that was a word for several witches who do go live and just talk and never get to the point, or only get to the point 2 hours in. Like, come on now, stop that shit. So new witches who are celebrating Samhain this time of year, be led by your intuition. Be led by your chosen god or goddess or ancestor or familiar or spirit animal. And enjoy the season of the witch. Enjoy Witchtober. Enjoy the witch's new year. And remember, you can also celebrate Samhain and Halloween at the same time. You can celebrate both. It is your choice. If you have the time of day to celebrate both, which I don't see how, because there is only, 24 hours in the day. And like I said earlier, you can celebrate Samhain anytime in October. But if you can celebrate Samhain and Halloween on the 31st, then yeah, go ahead and do it. Make it how you want to make it. Enjoy it. Enjoy. So this broadcast was for either new witches or witches who may need to be reminded of Samhain and what it is, what it's not, what they can and cannot do, and more importantly, listening to their intuition and listening to the voice of Hecate, the Queen of Witches, as they celebrate this most sacred day, Samhain, on October 31st, 2023. So thank you, witches, for joining me tonight. I will leave this up for the replay. I will also include it in my stories. And like I said, do share this broadcast with any witch, anybody thinking of becoming a witch. I mean a real witch, because they need to hear this word. So now I release you, witches. Thank you again for joining me. I now release you into the rest of your evening. Bye, everyone.